Welcome to MRII's Insights and Innovators podcast, where we talk to top market research professionals to get their inside stories about innovative and enduring best practices. Today's episode is sponsored by Question Pro. Question Pro is the web-based software for creating and distributing surveys. With our intuitive wizard interface, digital distribution of surveys, and tools for analyzing and viewing results, Question Pro delivers answers in real time. Now, here's your host for today's episode.
Welcome to today's episode. I'm Stan Stanunathan, board member of MRII and CEO of iGenie.ai. Today, we have a fascinating conversation with Ben Page lined up for you all. Ben is the CEO of a leading market research firm, Ipsos, and he's had an incredible career journey from accidentally stumbling into the industry to becoming a respected leader overseeing 20,000 employees worldwide. In this episode, Ben shares his insights on the keys to career success, the evolving nature of market research, and essential qualities of effective leadership. Whether you are just starting out or looking to take your career to the next level, you don't want to miss Ben's insights about getting hired and succeeding as a market researcher. Welcome, Ben. Let's start off by saying, you've been in the insights industry for a long time and you had an amazing career and you've hired a lot of talent over the years. What are the three key attributes that personally made you very successful?
I'm not sure, really. I think a certain perseverance, to be quite honest. I think you do need this idea that you can just go and be successful and it will all work out. Maybe for some people, but I think you do need a certain perseverance. And the other thing is, I've reflected on this because I wasted about 5 years of my career by not being decisive about what I really wanted to do. So I was doing okay and I was getting promoted, but it was only when I was around 30 and I realized I had to take this seriously as a career that and I'd had a son and my career really took off. And that's when I decided I focused on the things that I'm good at. So my comparative advantage, which unfortunately is not administration or bureaucracy, not particularly good at those, but have to remember to find people who are very good at them. Finding those things that, in my case, dealing with clients, trying to understand problems, presentations, trying to understand what clients might do with the information. Those perhaps were things that I were relative strengths. So I think identifying your strengths early and then also being decisive about being really serious about something. And for me, it was when I decided not just to be good at my job, but to be as good as I possibly could be, that, as I say, my career took off.
Now, Ben, as CEO of Ipsos globally, how would you describe your job to someone who's starting their career in the world of insights?
My job is really just to try and corral and lead our 20,000 people and to give them an environment in which they can be successful, giving them the tools that they need to do the job and a clear story about what we're trying to do, the purpose of the organization. And when I was younger, I used to think that some of these things, the mission, the vision, all of that stuff was pretty sort of irrelevant. But actually, the longer I've been doing this and the more I look at the data about leadership, the clearer it is that the organizations that are most likely to succeed are ones where people have a clarity not just about their own team and their own unit and what that's doing, but actually where that fits into the bigger picture. Because human beings want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. So all my job is to do is really hire great people, give them the tools they need them to do the job, give them a clear idea about where we're trying to go, and then get out of their way.
Awesome. That sounds fascinating, Ben. Easier said than done, and I know you're doing a fabulous job because the outcomes show, the results of Ipsos shows. Yeah.
Well, we try, but it's nothing is easy, and anybody who says it is, I'd love to know what they're smoking, Stan. Yeah.
And if you do send some my way also, please.
Okay.
Listen, I was looking at your profile, and you and I have something in common. We both have spent almost the same number of years in the insights industry.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, why did you choose this profession? And more importantly, why did you decide to stay in this profession and grow your career in this world of insights?
I think, I mean, first of all, like a lot of people, I got into this by accident. I mean, I always used to read the newspapers in Britain, and the Sunday Times in particular used to feature my
Mm.
old company, Mori, on the
Mm.
front page regularly. So I'd heard of Mori,
Mm.
but no, I did a history degree, and when
Mm.
I graduated, I very foolishly decided not to be a banker,
Mm.
not to go and join McKinsey or do any of those things. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I took the first job I could find when I moved to London,
Mm.
while I was trying to decide what to do with my life. And it was working in a telephone room, interviewing people near Oxford Street for a woman called Phyllis McFarlane, who you may know, Stan, who I think ended up as head of NOP at
Yep.
some point,
Yep.
and then a very senior person at GFK. And she was running a smaller business then. And I did that for about 6 months, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. But I thought I'd better join a graduate training scheme somewhere. So I joined the Mori graduate training scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I've ended up staying, and then obviously we sold to Ipsos about 20 years ago. The reason I've stayed is just simply the diversity of the work. And I think it's a
Mm.
great, our work allows us, and particularly if you're doing a wide range of things, to work with major brands like Unilever and look at all of the things that they're doing all over the world. But also, of course, we're working on politics. We're working for government. We're even in Britain working for the monarchy. So
Mm.
you get to literally, I've literally met everybody from presidents, prime ministers. I've been in the cabinet room and presented to the cabinet. I've been to the central banks of this world and met the governors of the world's banks. But I've also been to some of the poorest communities in my own country. And so I think market research in its entirety gives you a full understanding, or
Mm.
an insight into whole areas of the economy, of society, in a way that very few other careers actually do, I think. So
Mhm.
that's why I've stayed.
Oh, that sounds exactly similar to my reason for being in
Yeah,
this industry for a long time.
yeah,
You talked about dealing with monarchy and so on. I hope
yeah.
knighthood is right around the corner for you.
I don't think so, but nice idea, Stan. Nice
I
idea.
would love to tell the world that I know Sir Ben Page. So do let
Well,
me know when that thing does.
yeah, I think probably never. But people, my colleague Kelly Beaver got an MBE for our work on COVID, so it
Okay,
can happen.
it
It can
can
happen.
happen.
Actually, Bob Worcester. I'm being unfair. Sir Robert Worcester. Yes, Bob Worcester, the founder of Mori, did get a knighthood from the Queen. So yes, it can happen,
It
Stan.
can happen. It is going to happen. Trust me, you're going to become that.
Well,
Now, listen, having spent as long as you've spent and having acquired wisdom along the way, what is that one advice that you would give to your earlier self, the one which started the career in this world?
I think when I started, I was quite difficult, and I wasn't serious enough early enough. And I think if you can find
Mm.
something that you love doing
Mm.
and hopefully are good at,
Mhm.
and understand what your particular strengths are, and then apply them early in your career,
Mhm.
you will do much better than I've done, because I wasted about 5 years. So
Mm.
learning to be a bit more adaptable,
Mm.
learning to listen to people. I know for the people who are listening to this and think I don't listen to them, I maybe listen more than you think. But anyway, but certainly learning to listen, learning to be adaptable. And I think ultimately, of course, you want to try and make yourself pretty indispensable
Mhm.
in the setting you're working in. So all those things, and then just being enthusiastic,
Mm.
turning up. There's a lot to be said for being enthusiastic, turning up on time, and volunteering.
Mm.
The person. Are you one of those people who decides you want to go home every day at 5 p.m., or do you want to go off to an event or speak at something or go and network? And those are all individual choices that everybody makes every week.
Mm.
But if you say yes to more things, you will get offered more things, and you will get more opportunities.
That's actually very profound advice. It's something that could be of tremendous value to people who are actually entering into this world of insights. Listen, Ben, along the way, in your long career, you've hired people, you have fired people, you have inspired people, you have coached people, and you've done all kinds of things. What would make you say, perfect, that's a person I want to hire? What do you look for in that person?
I think you need people who are obviously intelligent, but also able to apply that intelligence.
Mm,
One of the sometimes something that I've seen in my career is incredibly intelligent people.
mm,
Double firsts from one of the world's greatest universities. They had the finest school and all the rest of it, and yet because of their personality, they never push themselves forward. They don't really want to take responsibility, and so being intelligent alone isn't enough. You need some intelligence, but I think self-aware, able to read a room, resilient, and it's hard to measure all those things, of course, in an interview. But that lack of self awareness is another thing that holds back many of us in our
mm,
careers. I think
mm,
just not understanding how other people see us, and
mm,
then a general sense of curiosity and enthusiasm, wanting to learn. And I think that combination of things is unbeatable. And in a sense, it doesn't
mm,
matter whether you're talking about 5 years ago or
mm,
5 years into the future.
mm,
Those human qualities
mhm.
will be so important, and the self-awareness
Yeah.
is just astonishing. How many people just don't know that they're not good with teams, or how
Mm,
they just don't realize how they come across. They don't mean
mm,
to annoy people or to make people feel they're not interested in them,
mhm,
but unfortunately, that's what happens. And so, if you
mm,
can learn that, I think that's something actually, Stan, that you do. I was trying to work out what had I learned since I was 40, because I'm 60 next year. And I was thinking, actually, yes, something about, learning a bit more about other people and how to handle different situations.
mm.
It's nothing about how to do research particularly,
Yeah.
but that I think is important. So those basic human qualities, I think, would be things I would look for to start with.
Ben, I had a Scottish boss at Coca-Cola many years ago, and he
Yeah.
said uh, something very similar to what you just said, but in a little bit more colorful way. He said, Stan, I've seen a lot of intelligent and bright people, but I wouldn't hire most of them to run a sweet shop. And he said, that,
True.
yeah, and he said, that's how you make stuff happen is
Correct.
probably more important. And I always remember that. And you talked about self-awareness, and that couldn't be more important in today's world than ever before, where people don't have social interaction skills as much,
That's true.
given that
Particularly,
mm,
actually, particularly in the US, and the number of people who are now entirely remote in various companies across the US as a European, is quite dramatic. And I think I do worry about how people will learn. How do
yeah,
you manage a room in real life
how
if
do you
you've just done it on a screen?
yeah,
And
how
what
do you
you've just said, Stan, was exactly what Obama says to young people, I think, which is be somebody who has a reputation for getting things done.
yeah, absolutely, that's very
Yeah.
critical. Now, besides all these things that you just said about what you look for in a person, have you seen something else in really successful people around you? Because you would have come across a lot of successful people around you.
Yes,
Have you seen
absolutely.
have you seen something that you look at it and say, "Oh, damn, I wish I had it." Oh, yeah, that's a great thing to have.
Well, I reflected on that, and I think the first thing is somebody who is a good communicator.
Hmm.
And there's a quote in Colin Powell's doctrine on leadership, which
Mm,
my
mm,
friend Tom Peters always cites, which is
mm,
that ability to simplify an
mm,
issue
mm,
and focus it down. A great leader is a great simplifier. So people who can communicate effectively about something, make the argument stand up. But also, I think you
mm,
need people who stand out to me in our industry are people with integrity,
mhm,
who aren't just flogging the latest thing. And I think standing up for the right thing, particularly
mm,
around data quality, even when it's embarrassing.
mm,
And sometimes in political polling or any type of research,
mhm,
there may be problems. You may have to admit that something's gone wrong. But if we don't have that willingness to stand up and admit that we've made a mistake or something needs to be done differently, then again, that's at the bedrock of
yeah,
who we have to be, because otherwise everything else is built on sand. And obviously, I think people who have successfully, and perhaps also unsuccessfully, tried new things, because the only way we learn
mm,
is through innovation, and sometimes things will succeed and
mm,
sometimes they won't. And again, being open about that, the more we can share,
mm,
all those things I think are hugely important.
mhm. Maybe if I spin this a little bit differently, have you come across something or someone which led to a spectacular failure of that individual? And
That's an
if,
interesting,
if,
yeah.
if there is something that we can learn from that, because for every one success, there are probably 9 failures. So maybe there's a
Yes,
lot to be learned from failures. Is there one thing that comes to
absolutely.
your mind?
I think people, and we all, of course, have attention bias in the sense that
Yeah.
we tell stories about the people who are successful and look at
Hmm.
what Bill Gates did or, Steve Jobs, etc. And we don't focus on all the other people who did quite similar things but
Hmm.
didn't get lucky. And actually, one thing I haven't mentioned in my own career, and I think this is important for everybody thinking about their careers, actually, luck does play a role. Yes, you have to be capable of taking advantage of luck when it turns up.
Mm,
But there have been several occasions in my career when I could have made different decisions and
mm,
I wouldn't have ended up as the global CEO of a big, relatively large company. I'm sure I'd be having a happy career somewhere in research, but
mm,
I probably wouldn't be running one of the largest ones.
mhm.
And so we mustn't forget that. Nobody writes books about the people who tried to do exactly the same thing as Richard Branson and for various reasons failed. I'm
Mhm.
trying to think in the industry of people who've tried things out that have failed. I mean, there will be all sorts of early examples, of course, of online research or people claiming that they could go on Twitter, as X used to be known, and they could understand public opinion simply by analysing Twitter. And of course, we now know that you might have some difficulty if you try to do that. But we need to keep looking for new sources of information. I mean, the latest one will be synthetic data. There
Yeah.
will be people claiming in the American election that they produced the correct winner to the perfect decimal place, and they did it all without interviewing a single live American. They could do it all from some combination of AI and I don't know, social media for all I know. But let's see.
Let's see is all I
Yeah,
would say.
yeah,
I would say I
yeah,
would wholeheartedly embrace synthetic data when
yeah.
synthetic human beings have wallet and they can spend money.
No, I mean, I think for imputation, if there are some missing variables, or you wanted to, if you've got, I don't know,
That's right.
imagine you've got a large sample of Hispanic, a good large sample of Hispanic Americans, and you've got their answers to 100 questions, and there are 10 questions that somehow relate to the 100, and you don't have answers to those 10. It might be possible if
Oh,
you had
yeah,
other
that's
data
it.
to be able to do that. But
That's
this
it.
idea of,
Yeah,
I've got this brand new pen,
yeah.
which now, I don't know, writes in some special ink which smells of violets or something like that. I don't know. And somehow synthetic data is going to tell me exactly how many people will buy this pen at $10 a time. I'm
Good luck.
skeptical at the moment. Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
luck with that one. Good luck with.
Yeah.
See, Ben, as you know, I spent a long time with Coca-Cola, and
Yes.
I'm big into secret formulas. Yeah,
Ah, yes, of
and
course.
and that's what made Coca-Cola great. What's the
Yeah.
secret formula that you have that made you great?
I think it's basically being able to try and take people with you on a journey, and because of course, in the words of Jack Welch of GEC, you can't do what he uses an expletive, which I won't use in your podcast, but you can't do the in work yourself. So as we work with larger and larger teams, our job is to build something where people know where we're trying to go. And that's something that I have spent a lot of time doing. And my own research actually helped me in that, because some of the work I have done is looked at different organizations and the characteristics of the leaders in the more successful ones
Hmm.
versus the unsuccessful ones.
Hmm.
And so that was something I was able in my career to model myself on,
Hmm.
because I could see what was actually working in real life. So I think, certainly a bit of perseverance. We've talked about luck. That's telling a story about who we are and where we're going
Hmm.
that people can buy into. And then the other thing is just letting go. Because you can't do all the work yourself, and you will go mad if you try,
Hmm.
being willing to take risks by delegating. And that again is something that feels really difficult to start with, particularly when you're younger, in your 20s and 30s, because of course you know that you will do it better than them, but you can't go on doing their work for them. So learning to let go and trust other people. Somebody once told me, well, Ben, you're very good and all that, but you have to understand other people have different standards. They're not necessarily inferior to your standards. And I'm like, well, I think they are actually, but anyway, no. So gradually learning that you need to be able to step back and build teams. I mean, I think everybody says that, but if you can try and create environments where people genuinely feel that they have some autonomy within a framework, and that's actually if you look at Ipsos is there aren't that many companies like Ipsos in so many countries, and Didier Truchot, the founder's secret, and the reason we sold our business to him, and then look at me here. I mean, that's another of his secrets. He managed to persuading founders and people to join you on it's the same story in a way, persuading people to join you on a journey. And so Ipsos has grown by persuading founders to sell their businesses to it, but then stay and build something that is bigger than we would be able to do on our own. And so that's to me, if it is a secret sauce, that and telling jokes occasionally and stuff is probably it. And and I think also trying to insist on high standards, because if you don't, then you've got a world of pain coming your way.
Absolutely. So Ben, in closing, both you and I are witnessing pretty seismic shifts in the way the insights industry is evolving.
Yes.
That obviously calls for a big pivot that all of us have to do, particularly when it comes to talent. So if you have to give one advice to people so that they can future-proof their career 3 to 5 years from now, what would that advice be?
It would be to, understand how you can. It's still about how you apply your intelligence to the task at hand. But of course, now you have more and more tools. So whereas originally we had to know how to read code frames and check computer tables, and then we had to learn how to use Excel and PowerPoint, now you will need to know how to use a large language model. Or maybe to build your own potentially large language model. But I think, on the other hand, actually, a few years ago, we were telling everybody they needed to learn coding. And a few years before that, we were telling everybody to learn Mandarin. So, I mean, the simple answer is we probably don't even know what skills you will need in 5 or 10 years because of the way in which generative AI may evolve. But I think developing your muscle for resilience, for adaptability, for listening, and I think for thinking laterally, making those connections between things, because all the large language models are at the moment really is large pattern recognition machines. They're not really doing anything else, but you'll certainly need to be able to use those. And in all of this, I think the core skill won't be different from 100 years ago or 500 years ago, Stan, which is the ability to communicate. And actually, the most potent form of communication remains, me talking to you, Stan, not sending you a tweet or a meme. It's word of mouth. And if you can communicate effectively using all of the different tools in real life, on a screen, you can express yourself succinctly and clearly, and you can take all of that, you can synthesize all of that information, because we sure as hell have plenty of information to help people use it. Those skills are vital today. I think they were vital yesterday, and they will be vital in the future. And too often we're sort of speeding towards everything being on a dashboard. But really, what does it mean? What are you going to do with it?
They would always say the so what and the now what.
Yes, absolutely. And I, at the moment, that the AI will help, but I'm not sure it will completely replace people.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. On that note, Ben, thank you so much for the time you spared. It was always a delight to talk to you. And it was absolute fun and honor to actually go through this podcast with you. I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom for the greater good of the Insights community. And I'm sure people will find it incredibly rewarding and exciting to listen to your wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining MRII's Insights and Innovators podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to all of our podcast episodes and visit us at mrii.org for more insights from market research professionals.